Okay, good iron strike. Not a very good strike, and I would imagine it's one that quite a lot of golfers are suffering with, where if we come in close here, we can see where my tee was. It's just popped out the ground there, but using the cane as the line, I've hit the ground before the golf ball. Massive divot, then got the golf ball, and it results in a horrible feeling shot, a horrible looking shot with no distance. Today's lesson though, I'm going to give you 3 things that I found with a few of my students recently have really helped them. So let's get stuck in right now and fix this fat shot. Okay, this first thing comes from a lesson that I had with a chap called John recently, and it's all to do with a little bit of misinformation, because as golfers we get loads of information thrown at us. There's thousands upon thousands of YouTube videos. We get our mates telling us out on the golf course to do different things. We hear something, we pick up little tidbits, and sometimes it's not quite the information we need. And this misconception that John had was, I've got to try and stay as still as possible. If I'm going to get this golf ball and make a good shot, I don't want too much movement. I've got to keep my head down, don't move off the golf ball, don't look for where it's gone, just one of my playing partners will look for it. I've got to keep still. Now unfortunately, the golf club isn't going to move if we stay still. The golf swing, as we're making it, is a fluent motion. It's not something where we're going stop, start, stop, and going through it. It's something where we're actually moving throughout the entirety of the golf swing. And what was happening for John was that, if we look on the camera here now, when we think of the zipper line here for me, so where my sternum is, we know that if I'm going to impact the ball then the turf, my sternum needs to be just in front of the golf ball. But in setup, John was pretty decent, looking good, but then as he made the golf swing, he was trying to stay as still as possible. Don't move. And then as he would come down, he was trying to keep still and still and still and still and still. And we see here, as I'm doing that, my sternum now is actually falling back behind the line here because of that misconception of me trying to stay still and make good contact. But like I said a minute ago, we need to make sure that we are moving, and that sternum, as I get through into my follow through, as we see here now, is over that lead foot. I've actually moved it. I've not kept it on the line. I've not kept my head down, and I've not kept still. Staying still is just going to kill your golf, so do not do it. What we want to do is get fluent, feel free. It'll feel, and as John said to me during the lesson, God, that felt effortless. I just hit that one and it's gone as far as I've done when I feel like I've got to absolutely smash it to get it out there. So what we did with John, didn't need a ball to start off with. I put a line down here on the middle of his body, and then we had a tee peg. We actually had a chalk line, and if you're on the driving range, great to do it. You can have a tee peg or a chalk line there, and I just put another one out in front of him here, a couple of inches out in front there. And all I said to John was, I want you to try and feel free in your backswing, but then on the downswing, I want you to try and get this feeling of shifting forwards. Imagine you're pushing down on that front foot. So as you do that, we now see that the sternum is moving across here. We see that it gets in front of where the golf ball would be, so it would be down here now towards where that other tee peg was. And then as I go and I've hit, I'm going to turn and get into that front foot. And as he started doing it, he almost felt that he was walking off the shot here because of how much movement he was not having during his original swings. He was used to being so still and trying not to move anything, just his arms, that any slight little shift of pressure towards that front foot felt like a massive thing for him. So that is the first thing I want you to try and do. If you're struggling to strike your irons proper, get that ball and turf strike, we're going to see that we're going to make some swings where as we start the downswing, we push into that front foot, we feel we're squashing the ground, and I get that sternum moving. I see that it's working there. So as we do that, we're going to clip one off here, and we should see after this a pretty nice divot and a really nice strike. And if we just come in close here, look at the difference of these two divots. This is massive. We've got divot one. You can see where the tee peg is here, that's where my ball was. We can see it a couple of inches well before it. We've got divot two. There's the tee peg, and that's where I impacted the ground afterwards. So just by getting a little bit of movement and not listening to that misinformation of staying still, don't move, we're going to get a better ball strike. Guys, if you're enjoying this lesson as well, do remember to hit that subscribe button down below. I want you to get better at golf, and you're going to do it by hitting that button and getting your free lessons every week. Let's take a look at the next thing as well that helped one of my lessons get a better strike when he was out on the lesson tee. So again, a bit of conception. We want to hit ball then turf. We want to hit down, and that's a big word. We want to hit down on the golf ball. And one of my lessons, Luke had said, right, I'm trying to really get down on it, trying to get that compression, because they're almost like buzzwords that we hear. Oh, did you hear how much he compressed that then? Or he really hit down on that one. And that sometimes can lead to a little bit of a fault in our golf swing, because what I saw from Luke was, he had that in his mind that he was going to hit down on the golf ball, and straight away, if we look at this camera here, what he'd actually done, he'd angled his body like so. So as we see here, it almost looks like I've got a bit of a wedge coming out the lead side of my body, and my spine angle now is actually tilted towards my target, because Luke's idea was that as he was coming down, he really wanted to hit down on the golf ball. So as he was starting to do this, we were seeing positions like this where he was actually getting his lead shoulder, so his left shoulder as a right-handed golfer, really down at the ground here, all in that aid to hit down on it. Now, unfortunately, that isn't going to help, and what Luke was doing at the range, and you can really hear it, was a big thud out into the mat. And obviously when you get out onto the golf course and we've got grass, you're not going to get away with it. So what we tried to work with with Luke, really simple, was changing his concept and his idea of what he wanted to do to help the ball get up in the air and hit down on the ball. And what we described it was, well, what goes up must come down. And what we talked about was, as we stand to it now, I almost wanted him to address it, feeling like he was going to hit a driver. So as his left shoulder, his lead shoulder went up, his right shoulder came down. So then as he was trying to hit them, I said to him, imagine as you come in, you're going to get the right shoulder down now. So your right comes down and your right elbow tucks as you do this. And as you're coming in, what we see is that you get this nice feeling of extending upwards in the lead side, and we get this feeling of going down with the right side. So instead of looking this way, what we got the feeling was he looked a little bit more this way. And what that allowed him to do as he was coming through, I just said to him, right Luke, I'm going to pop in a towel, or we use one of the Wedge Pros here, I'm going to pop this in behind you. I gave him about 2 feet of space. And if he was going to come down in his old manner, because he was here so much and coming so steep down into it, he would have hit the Wedge Pro. But because it's like a little ramp here, I said, imagine as you're coming down, you're going to land your plane into the back of the golf ball, plane being the golf club. We go up and we come down, and you miss the ramp here. And what I want you to do is just brush the mat. Get used to actually taking a little graze. And as we see here, I'm not really taking a divot, but what I'm doing is just brushing that turf each time. What I'm not doing is slamming it down into the ground, all because I'm trying to hit down on it. So a real simple thing for him, and the one that you can try at home, is all about just changing those angles. And if you're in a mirror or you've got a camera and you're watching it in that way, just think about it. I go up, the right shoulder comes down, not the left shoulder. My lead shoulder is a right-handed golfer. And then as I hit this one out here, with that same feeling that we gave Luke, I take my setup. I know that I'm going to move that sternum from John's lesson. I'm going to make it go lead up, trail down, and from there, a lovely little crisp connection. And again, if we just check that out, we've got the divot after the golf ball. We're not trying to get too crazy. We've got a bit more divot here. There's the tee peg. We're not seeing a big chunk of ground before it. So real simple. Again, change that conception. It's not that I'm going down into it. I'm going to go up with the lead shoulder and down with the trail to get that nice little brushing sensation. Let's take a look at the final thing that I did with one of my other lessons to help him stop getting the ground before the ball. Okay, the final lesson was with a chap called Steve, and the analogy I gave to him was all about a hockey player. How does a hockey player pass the ball? If they were going to play with it, and we're talking field hockey here, I think ice hockey is pretty similar. I'll just pop this down for a second. What I talked about was that when they've got the ball down here and they scoop it off like this, they never get a fat shot before it, because the hockey stick's already on the ground and they're sweeping that that hockey ball away. They don't go down and take a big chunk out of the hockey pitch, because that would really hurt. So the conception I gave to Steve was that, imagine we were going to do that. You're not trying to take a big divot. We don't need massive divots. Imagine you're just going to brush the turf. And when we see the hockey player, when they've got the split hands, and I had him have a few swings where he just started and just felt like he was dragging and extending here, putting the club behind and extending. I said, what do you notice there, Steve? And he said, well, it feels like I'm really pressing the golf club forwards as I do this. It doesn't feel like what I normally do. When I hit a shot, I feel like I throw the club head down at the ball. And what was happening for Steve was that as he was coming through, and you can see where I've just put this red stick here on the outside of my shoe, he was generally hitting the ground somewhere near there. Because what he was starting to do, as he got up to the top of his golf swing, he thought, right, I've got to get that golf ball, I've got to hit down, and he would throw the angles that he's created in his wrist here. So as he was going through, he would move, end up digging back down like this. So we didn't want that. We didn't want to throw these angles. We want to try and keep them and get that dragging feeling that we saw from that little hockey thing from a moment ago. So once we'd had a few of the hockey swings and got those feelings going, I said, right, take this little red stick for me. Put it inside your grip here, so only 4 or 5 inches are poking out here, as we can just see there, just 4 or 5 inches poking out. What I want you to do now is make some swings, and I want you to imagine that this is a big torch for me. And as you stand and address it, that is now looking under your left armpit, so your lead armpit. And as you're going to chip a few shots out for me, I want you to shine the stick underneath this armpit the whole time. You're not allowed to let the stick shine back at the back of the bay, I was saying. So we're going to make a few swings where it feels like it's shining underneath your armpit the whole time. So it looked something a bit like this. And using the cane down on the floor, he was starting to notice that as he was coming through, club head was trailing behind the grip here. So we had a few of these, and as he noticed, he was starting to get a nice little brush. He didn't feel like he was throwing it and letting the stick poke out backwards here. He was dragging it and actually starting to get it. And then what he did after that was great. Little chip shot, didn't go into the full shot straight away. We got some little swings here. I said, right, come on, 100 yards with your 7-iron. Let's see if we can get the dragging feeling and chip it out from there. And what we see as we do that, and you can probably pick that up on the mic, the sound of that strike, and if you come in close again, that's the best one yet. The tee's gone because I've crunched it, and we've got a nice little divot here again, all because of that hockey-like feeling. So as we've gone through, try and get that one. If you're struggling with feeling that you're always dead wristy and throwing the club head at the golf ball, imagine having a few swings where you split the grip and just drag it as a practice feeling, feel that you're dragging the handle, then try and take that into your swing, and you'll start to see that we get that ball then turf. So guys, 3 things that I've done with my lessons this week that have really helped them get that ball then turf. A lot of misinformation out of there, a lot of people getting the concepts wrong, getting a few different feelings, and we're starting to see quality ball striking. So do that, try them out, see if they work. Comment down below if you found a way as well that's helping you get your ball striking better. Guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in your next lesson.